Good afternoon, everyone. Ivan, thank you very much for the very warm introduction and those kind words. And it is a pleasure to be here with you all today in Croke Park. Us Cork people don't get too much opportunity at the moment, unfortunately, to come here, but hopefully that will change in the not too distant future. And of course, just to rub salt in the wound, one of the first people I met was Aaron Gillan then earlier on around the place. But it is great to be here with you all. I want to start by just thanking your President, Frank Kelly, and of course your Director General, Tom Parlin, for the invitation to speak to you and with you here today. And it was great to have an opportunity to go through all of the exhibition stands outside, to meet all of the people, to see all of the innovation that is happening across this sector. It is a dynamic, rapidly evolving and changing sector, and this is a pivotal moment for the construction industry and indeed for the country as a whole. I want to acknowledge all of the work of the Federation and to thank them for their engagement over many months, and particularly during COVID and of course in the lead up to the most recent budget. This engagement is really valuable to us as policymakers, and for me as the Minister with lead responsibility for important areas such as the National Development Plan and of course public procurement. This is an important relationship, and it is a good working relationship which I know will continue into the future. I note that the theme of today's conference is building a resilient industry, and this is certainly very appropriate given the last 2.5 years that we have all been through. And as with other sectors of the economy, the construction industry has faced massive challenges over that period. However, the signs of recovery in the sector are clear. There are approximately 167,000 full-time and part-time workers now in the construction sector. That's an increase of 40,000 in the last 12 months. So that is a very welcome recovery from the depths of COVID-19. Over the last few years, we have faced 3 major economic shocks in the form of Brexit, COVID-19 and now the terrible land war in Europe. And all of these shocks have of course brought their own unique challenges. And we all know that we are now facing into economic headwinds, uncertainty, rising interest rates, the cost of energy and inflation generally, weakening external demand, supply chain difficulties, labour shortages, just to name a few. These are all realities that I know you all have to face every day, and indeed the government has to confront these in the plans that we are making as well. The good news for us in Ireland is that we are facing into these challenges from a real position of strength. During the pandemic, we provided about €37 billion of direct expenditure supports to protect lives, first and foremost, but also to protect livelihoods, to support incomes and employment, and to safeguard businesses throughout the length and breadth of our country. And the economic recovery from the pandemic as a result of that support has been rapid, more rapid than I think anyone really would have foreseen. And today, the Irish economy is among the most successful economies in the world. We now have over 2.55 million people working in Ireland, which is a far cry from the levels of unemployment that we witnessed during those dark days a couple of years ago. Employment in our economy is now 9% higher than the pre-pandemic peak. And this is reflected too in the unemployment rate, which now stands at just over 4%. The public finances are in a healthy state. Last week we were able to introduce an €11 billion package with no borrowing whatsoever, while at the same time putting €6 billion into a national reserve and still projecting a budget surplus this year and a considerably larger surplus next year. These are gains that we should not take for granted, and we should not put them at risk. Having these resources gives us the capacity to respond should the need arise over the course of next year or perhaps beyond. It was around this time last year that we launched the €165 billion National Development Plan in that other great national GA stadium, Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Ireland's population is now over 5 million and is set to grow further over the coming decades. And to keep pace with that, it is a reality. We need more schools, we need far more homes, we need new healthcare facilities built, better transport infrastructure, both public transport, road infrastructure, just to name a few examples. And the NDP is the blueprint to get there. It provides government departments and your sector, crucially, with the certainty that funding will be provided for capital investment over the coming decade. This €165 billion plan will bring public investment levels in Ireland to 5% of GNI star, which we think is the best measure of economic output in Ireland, and that's well above the current EU average of about 3% of GDP. This record capital investment will sustain just over 80,000 construction jobs annually this decade. The recent budget has made a further €800 million available next year for capital investment. And when you add in the capital carryover that we expect from this year, the amount available next year will be well over €12 billion for our public capital programme. But the NDP is not just a matter of allocating money to different projects and departments. I know earlier this morning you heard from various contributors on how Ireland can improve delivery, including, as Ivan has said, from the Secretary-General of my own department, David Maloney. Under the NDP, a number of initiatives have been undertaken in this regard to improve delivery. The Project Ireland Delivery Board oversees the delivery of the NDP, and it has been an effective forum where issues from across the system can be raised, thrashed out, and hopefully progress made on them. Recently, the board was expanded to include 5 external members, bringing additional expert knowledge, independent and regional perspectives, and an enhanced challenge to the deliberations of the board. And I was really anxious to add those external voices to the board, and I'm delighted with the calibre of people that we now have serving on it. The construction sector group is, of course, a wider group that brings together key industry stakeholders and government departments and agencies. And the main function of this group is to increase collaboration and engagement among the principal decision makers and to improve productivity within the sector. In the last year, my department has awarded funding for the establishment of the Build Digital project, led by Technological University Dublin and partners. And 58 industry members are now participating in this project, working on 5 different pillars. And the team is currently working in the annual survey, and I would encourage all of you to participate in that survey, because it is a vital benchmark to identify the digital adoption needs of the industry for SMEs, contractors and others for the next number of years. In addition, work has commenced on the planning for a housing demonstration park for modern methods of construction at Mount Lucas. CIF has done very considerable work under the Construction Sector Group Innovation and Digital Adoption subgroup. The CIF has published 3 reports related to modern methods of construction. And these reports contain very important recommendations for the industry to flourish in terms of skills, standards, and indeed governance. The transitioning from traditional on-site construction to a more manufacturing-based model with off-site prefabrication will play an increasing role in the future. And I've seen that on a number of sites that I've had an opportunity to visit in recent months. Work is currently ongoing by the public and the private sector to analyse the present and the future needs for the adoption of modern methods of construction and the barriers to MMC in Ireland's construction sector today. In July, the Construction Technology Centre was launched, which is to be led by a consortium of NUIG and partners and is funded by Enterprise Ireland. It is intended that some projects will start shortly. In addition, the Built to Innovate initiative was announced in March of this year, which will provide funding for productivity and innovation projects to Irish companies which have a minimum of 20% of revenue from home building. The NDP sets out the range of actions that are being taken to strengthen the delivery of major projects, to maximise value for money, and to ensure that projects are completed on time and within budget. A number of major projects have now received important advice and recommendations from the Major Projects Advisory Group, which I established in December of last year. The purpose of this group is to strengthen the scrutiny of capital projects with an overall aim to achieve better value for money by increasing governance, robustness of costings, and indeed delivery feasibility. It is critical to improve delivery that projects are well defined from an early stage. And I know for many of you, this is so important to better assess the costs and indeed the timelines. I recognise that your industry has faced so many challenges as a consequence of the pandemic. The situation, of course, has been made even more challenging with the invasion of Ukraine and the spiral of increasing costs that has triggered. The war has led to greater supply chain issues and increased prices across a whole range of construction materials, such as structural steel, copper, and insulating materials. And of course, the cost of energy is directly having a major impact also. So in order to safeguard the delivery of key NDP projects, back in January, I firstly introduced measures to address inflation for new contracts and tenders. These measures included reducing the fixed price period of contracts to 24 months. And then in May, we went further and we introduced a form of price variation or burden sharing to ensure that taking on public works contracts remains a viable proposition. And under these measures, additional inflation costs will be apportioned between the parties to the public works contract, with the state bearing up to 70% of the additional inflationary-related costs, including fuel costs. And earlier, I know you heard from David O'Brien from the Office of Government Procurement, and he would have outlined the key aspects of the review of the Capital Works Management Framework that is underway. And the changes arising from this review will improve the public procurement process over the coming years and will result in further reforms to the Public Works contract. We are committed to reforming further the Public Works contract, and I do believe that we need to have flexibility to recognise where costs have changed, where price variation is necessary, and I look forward to the final outcome of that. But I can assure you that in the interim period, the burden sharing arrangement that we have now in place will be continuing. Ensuring that people have access to affordable and secure housing remains a top priority for the government. And I know you've heard today an entire segment on residential delivery, which shows that it's also a key priority for your sector. Housing for All was launched just over a year ago, and through the funding provided by the National Development Plan, over €4.5 billion of public money is being made available next year to provide badly needed social, affordable and cost rental homes. We have seen the highest number of completions in over a decade, and over 28,000 residential units have been commenced nationally. The number of first-time buyers is at its highest in 15 years, with 16,000 purchasing homes in the last year. We are making progress, but it is absolutely clear that much more needs to be done, and I know that the sector is facing challenges in terms of the pipeline of new developments over the next 12 and 24 months, and we will be working with you collaboratively to address those. Home ownership is at the core of the Housing for All plan, and indeed the First Home scheme, which, as you know, is designed to make it easier for first-time buyers to buy new-build homes. In addition, the Help to Buy scheme has now been extended, and over €60 million being allocated to schemes like Croí Cónaithe to tackle vacancy and promote regeneration in urban areas. We do have to make better use of our existing building stock. And I think when you walk around towns and indeed our cities, we see far too many vacant properties, far too much space over offices, over shops, that are currently not being used at all, or perhaps are being underutilised. We're also seeing the first cost rental and affordable purchase homes coming online. As we all know, the planning system in Ireland is often cited as one of the main delays in housing projects. I accept the system is too complex and unwieldy, and far too many projects end up being the subject of a judicial review, where in too many instances the planning decision has been overruled in court, and that should not be the case. And we have to make sure our system is more robust and that we reduce the legal risk of successful challenges into the future. So, as you know, the Attorney General is currently working to consolidate and simplify the legislation, and I do anticipate that we will have a new consolidated planning bill completed and brought to government in the next number of weeks. The recent budget also sees €13 million in additional funding being made available for increased investment in our planning system, which includes extra resources for An Bord Pleanála, for local authorities and for the Office of the Planning Regulator, and the funding for the new agency to regulate the development in the maritime sector, the Maritime Area Regulatory Authority, which is such an exciting sector that opens up much opportunity for many of you as members of CIF. Earlier this week, Minister O'Brien announced a series of reforms to Umbro Planola. We need to have a planning system that we have full confidence in, while at the same time one that enables the delivery of vital projects in a timely manner. I do, of course, want to touch on the defective concrete products levy announced in the budget. And I think it's important here just to restate the context. The context is the government, as we all know, signed up to a MICA redress scheme that has an estimated cost of some €2.7 billion. Minister O'Brien has also published the report of the working group examining defects in apartments, which put the cost of remediation at up to €2.5 billion. So the government will have to respond to that report in due course. But however you divide it up, there is a bill between the two schemes that could exceed €5 billion. We have to ensure, as a government, that our national finances are managed in a credible way. We don't have to look too far to see what happens when the markets turn against you and believe your fiscal plans are not credible. So this is the backdrop to the levy that was announced last week. That said, we will listen to the concerns that have been expressed by many about the impact of the levy, and many of you took the opportunity earlier on to convey those directly to me. And Minister Donoghue and the government will give careful consideration to all of these issues over the weeks ahead as the finance bill passes through the Oireachtas during the month of November. Earlier you heard from my colleague, Minister Harris. The government recognises that without more construction workers, we simply will not be able to deliver the NDP or Housing for All, or indeed the crucial climate action plan. The government continues to invest and support the delivery of apprenticeships throughout the country, and I've no doubt he took you through the numbers earlier, and a very welcome dramatic increase in the flow-through of apprentices now in the system, and we're providing a very significant additional investment to make that system more efficient, to attract more people into it, and we are seeing some very good signs of progress there. The Housing for All Future Building Initiative was launched earlier this year, and it seeks to engage directly with those who are seeking work, supporting them through training and skills development and matching them with you, prospective employers. Improvements have been made to enable the granting of more work permits. We have shortened the turnaround time now for work permits. In many instances, particularly for critical skills, it's now about 3 to 4 weeks, which is a dramatic improvement on where it was last year. Also, the apprenticeship employer grant of €2,000 per employer was introduced. And we all know we need far, far more labour to deliver the number of homes and indeed the infrastructure that our country badly needs. And I welcome the fact that the next panel discussion today will consider recruitment and apprenticeships in the construction sector. The work of the National Apprenticeship Office under Dr. Mary Liz Trant will be a vital cog in the wheel in terms of the efforts to increase recruitment and retention of apprentices in the sector. Ireland is committed to doing its part to tackle climate change, and I know that your sector is too. We've published a climate action plan, and you're all very familiar with the ambitions that are set out within that plan. We've established a new national retrofit scheme which provides homeowners with a 50% grant for deep retrofits and an 80% grant for cavity wall and attic insulation. We have to build up the capacity in the private sector to deliver on the retrofitting ambitions that we have as a government and as a country, and which we really need to deliver on over the coming years. We've committed €8 billion out to 2030 for retrofitting, and I'm sure the industry will respond to this commitment in the coming years, because there is massive opportunity in this space, and it will be sustained over a long number of years. Work is also underway to improve sustainability in the sector and to reduce waste from construction and demolition projects. And I want to acknowledge the digital adoption subgroup of the construction sector group, who are also working to enhance sustainability in the construction sector. To conclude, I want to again, as I always do when I speak to the CIF, just commend you and all of the members for the work you are doing in relation to health and safety. The most important thing for any man or any woman who goes to work every day is that they come home at the end of that day without having been involved in an accident. And I know you have put in huge efforts over recent years and continue to, and that will need to be sustained to continue to improve health and safety on sites all over Ireland. We all share the ambition, I know, that is contained in the National Development Plan, Housing for All and the Climate Action Plan, and we all want to work together now to deliver on that ambition. And it is for this reason that we have to continue to work closely together, as we have done over the last number of years, through a spirit of collaboration and engagement in forums like the Construction Sector Group. I do believe that we can meet those challenges over the years ahead. Today's conference has covered many of the key issues and indeed the challenges that your sector is facing, I am confident that the industry will continue to demonstrate the resilience in terms of meeting the challenges ahead, and I'm equally confident that your industry will deliver the infrastructure projects that the country needs over the decades to come, and I look forward to working with you to deliver together on those ambitions. Thank you all very much.